What is going on to all of my movie fans out there, and welcome back to my channel. We are back discussing the 6th entry in one of my favorite horror franchises of all time, and that is Scream 6. And today we're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I'm gonna let you know if it's worth checking out in theaters. We'll be discussing that and much more in today's spoiler-free review. But before we get into it, let's start the conversation in the comments. Let me know if you all are a fan of this franchise, number one, and how excited were you before seeing this film. And once you've seen Scream 6, what'd you think about it? Let's talk about what worked for you, what didn't work, your favorite moments, least favorite moments, your thoughts on the kills, the characters, the Ghostface killer, New York City as a new location, and where would you like to see this franchise go next? And if you've seen all 6 of these movies, how would you rank them from worst to best? Let's have those conversations below. And if you all enjoyed today's review, consider hitting that thumbs up as well as sharing this video. With that being said, let's start off with my positives. And I want to talk about the returning directors, and that is from the Radio Silence team. I'm talking about Tyler and Matt. After seeing Scream 5 and now having seen Scream 6, there's a level of appreciation that I see from them. There's an attention to detail, there's a passion, there's a love that they have for this franchise, and a respect to what's come before them. But that doesn't take away from their creative endeavors. It doesn't take away from their creative liberties to this franchise, and they're breaking some rules in doing so, which I appreciate. And speaking of breaking rules, going back to Scream 5, how they kind of broke the tradition of killing a character with an opening sequence, which I love with Tara. They do something with this opening sequence that makes it one of my favorite moments of this movie, but also one of my favorite opening sequences of this entire franchise. And without giving too much away, without giving too much context in that, the idea that's implemented in this opening sequence to me was so interesting, so unique, so fascinating. It's something you've never seen in a Scream opening, especially from the perspective in which you see it from, and also it's pretty violent, which violence is the word that I would use to describe this Ghostface killer. As they say in the trailer, you've never seen a Ghostface killer like that, and they really meant that. The Ghostface killer in this film is on a mission to kill the Carpenter sisters, and anyone that gets in their way, you're dead next. This Ghostface killer doesn't care if you have a room full of people, if it's daytime, nighttime, if it's in the middle of a bodega, or if it's even on a damn train, you're gonna feel that Ghostface presence. And when it comes to the kills in this movie, they're terrifying. The actual Ghostface killer is frightening at times. It's very suspenseful. It provides us with some of the best kills of this franchise, and they're just so intense. They're so gory at points, and I just loved every moment of that. But also, speaking of kind of new additions to this franchise, the welcome to the New York City location, which to me is definitely a character within itself, and it take away the kind of facade of being in a small town in Woodsboro and now going to this large city, which with that large city environment, you kind of add the idea of where will the killer strike next, because it's such a large playing field that they have, and also the idea that we're in New York, so the crime is obviously kind of everyday matter of fact type of situation where people don't really care if you're getting killed or screaming. That adds more tension to the moment. So I do appreciate what the New York City location brought to this 6th film, which kind of brings me into talking about the performances. And I want to start off by talking about the core 4. I'm talking about Sam, Tara, Mindy, and Chad, who I've come to really care for, and I appreciate the bond that they've grown, especially seeing this movie based on the events that happened in Scream 5. And the film addresses that shared trauma that they have, and it plays into the actual narrative, especially from the Carpenter sisters. A lot of good character stuff going on with Tara and Sam, putting a moment to focus on Jenna Ortega and her performance as Tara. She is someone that's trying to move past what happened in Scream 5. She's trying to go to college and not allowing the Ghostface killer to haunt her memories, and she doesn't want to become just known for that. And then paralleling that to what's going on with Melissa as Sam, who's trying to be this overprotective sister. At the same time, she's trying to shake the stigma of being a daughter of a serial killer. So I thought the Carpenter sisters, I really enjoyed them in 5, but I really enjoyed their dynamic much more in Scream 6. And just kind of keying in, like I said, I love Jenna Ortega. She's great in this film, but I really want to put an emphasis on the performance that we get from Melissa in this film. Shouldn't go underappreciated, because not taking anything away from the other performances, but for me, Melissa gave the best performance in this film, because she has so many different ranges of emotions in this movie, from being the victim to caring for her sister and her friends to not having all the answers to how they're going going to take down this new Ghostface, to just straight up being a badass in this movie, right? Like, when push comes to shove in Scream 6, you want to be on Sam's side. And I liken it to what we saw with Laurie Strode in 2018 Halloween, how Laurie was just so prepared for Michael, and the same could be said about Sam with Ghostface. So I really appreciate her growth, her development, and the carryover from Scream 5 into this new one with her mental state and just exploring her and her father and all that stuff that she learned in Scream 5 into this one. I really appreciate it. So the Carpenter sisters were great. The twins, I'm a big fan of them. Chad is essentially the Dewey of the crew, and I really enjoy what he brings to the table. But Mindy, she's just a fan favorite. I love that character. Jasmine's just perfect in the role. So they're great. I can't skip out on the OG making a return and also a fan favorite. Let's start off with Gail Weathers, played by Courteney Cox. To me, she's solid in this movie. She's just as effectively used as she was in Scream 5, and she has one of the more intense scenes in this movie, if I'm being honest. So she was fine. And Kirby, again, fan favorite. I'm a big fan of her role in Scream 4. And if I'm being honest with you all, when we are introduced, or to say reintroduced to Kirby in Scream 6, it started off a little stiff to me, but I will say as the film progressively went on, she became the Kirby that I have loved from Scream 4. So performances were really solid across the board. I gotta mention before we kind of get into my criticisms, I've always been a fan of how the Scream films have had something to say about the current state of horror and slashers, and from Scream 4, 5, now into 6, having to offer some commentary on the online toxicity in the fandom. There's a lot of subliminal fire shot at people that have some just ridiculous things to say about the franchise, and just taking personal shots at the actors. There's a lot of shots at those fans that I appreciate it, but I'm just so impressed by how they're able to navigate those type of plots into its main narrative. And I enjoy the movie focusing on the characters' mental state and addressing them facing your trauma rather than running away from it. So that particular theme was very prominent and pretty well woven into the narrative. So those are my main pros. Let's get into my negatives here, because this film isn't perfect by any means. Now, Scream, just like any other franchise or any other horror film, has this good amount of tropes that it plays into this storyline. But just because I know they're going to be there doesn't mean I can't acknowledge them or notice them, because there are some moments in this film, as in other Scream movies, even the best ones, where the characters make some very illogical, dumb, just idiotic decisions that can be a bit frustrating. Again, I'm very aware of them, and I know what to expect them at points, but it still doesn't take away from me saying that was pretty dumb for the character to do that, right? So that's a small little nitpick, but getting really into the things that bother me, there is a lot of plot conveniences that are seen in this film, a lot of plot holes that are very huge, as well as there is a huge, thick level of plot armor on certain characters. Now, obviously, I'm a fan of this franchise, and I love certain characters, and I can get it, right? You can tell that they know which characters the fans like, and I can appreciate that, but at the same time, it kind of held back the stakes, because, again, the whole thing of these rules being broken, especially in this film, hey, anyone and everyone can die at any point, but then when you see the plot armor on certain characters, it's like, oh, man, just lean into it. If you're gonna go there, go there. So that was something that bothered me. And speaking of being bothered, I'm not gonna lie, I talked about the good performances. I won't single them out. I'll just say all of the newcomers to this film, to me, were very one note, very flat. I wasn't a fan of the performances from the new cast, so that's something that bothered me. But also something that comes to mind is it felt a bit repetitive at points, like been there, done that, especially when you've seen all of the films. And again, I appreciate the acknowledgement of the Easter eggs and all the callbacks, but there were some very similar plot lines that felt like Scream 2 and felt like Scream 3, and they felt very recycled. And one last thing before we wrap it up, I said it a little bit earlier, I love the Ghostface killer in action, but I can't say the same about the reveal of who the actual Ghostface killer is. And the reasonings behind it felt a little bit repetitive, and also there was some plot holes within their reasoning that I won't explain here. But that also sums out how I feel about the actual conclusion in the third act of the film. To me, there's some great moments in the third act, but it is very messy in its execution. So those are my main pros. Those are my main cons. Before I give you all my overall score and let you know if it's worth checking out, if you stuck around to this point in the review, I appreciate you. Just a friendly reminder, if you're enjoying and appreciating the review, hit the thumbs up, share this video, and consider subscribing to the channel. With that being said, overall, I believe the diehards of this franchise franchise will have a killer time in this film, as I did, enjoying a lot of these moments. There's so many good callbacks. There's some great kills. There's a really solid Ghostface in this film. And just removing my fandom, like I mentioned, there were some plot holes. There's too many plot conveniences in the third act I wish was just executed better. But at the end of the day, I think I got out of what I wanted from this Scream film, which was a fun time, some great kills, a new environment, and there's more to be said in this franchise. So I'm going to give Scream 6 a 3.5 out of 5. And I recommend you all give it a watch. And when you do, let me know your thoughts on it. I got some more Scream content on the way from you all. I'm going to share my rankings. Go ahead and share yours now once you've seen Scream 6. But I'll make a separate video giving you all my rankings of Scream 1 through 6. I have a spoiler review coming soon, so keep an eye out for all of that. So again, 3.5 out of 5. Go check it out. And once you've seen it, let's talk about it in the comments. Again, favorite moments, least favorite moments, favorite kill. What'd you think about the Ghostface killer, the reveal, as well as the new location? What would you want to see next? Let's have those conversations below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, just a friendly reminder before you all leave, hit the like button, share this video, comment your thoughts below, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. As you all can see on the screen now, consider joining the community. Check out my previous breakdown. Check out all my reviews that I have so far from this year. You all have been awesome. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll see you all on the next video.